when computers continue to automate and do faster and better certain rote tasks that humans historically and up till this day have done, there will be societal shifts from the standpoint of people losing their jobs and things like that, which is a cause of worry and concern for a lot of people, given that large sectors of the economy will be displaced. Now, the way I look at it is that while it's always not cool to see someone lose their job and maybe relocate their family and things like that, but at the same time, it does lead to that person needing to develop their skills at a higher level to then end up contributing something that a computer cannot do. And that may mean that they need to tap into those creative potentials within themselves that they formerly could not get into because they were doing rote work. So in that way, it will be tough short-term transitions, but I think we're headed for a long-run betterment.
Yeah, it is tough. You never want to disrupt anyone's livelihood globally. Nobody wants to have someone's livelihood taken away, and I don't necessarily think that computers do that, but I agree that automation shifts the way that work is needed. And we've seen that historically with everything that we have done. You invent a better hammer, and now the people that used to operate the previous hammer are going to be out of a job. And I think it is a very important challenge for us as a society and as a race to be aware of that we cannot leave the people behind because they have learned a skill of a certain level. This skill is something that's critically useful in a previous pattern. And what I think the tendency is to say, well, you know what, we don't need this skill anymore. What we need now is we need for you to just be creative and change and think. And I don't think that's fair. I think that's
it's definitely simplistic.
Yeah, I think that's what has led to a lot of feelings of people being left out. And a lot of, we see this often in elections, that kind of more simplistic ideas of bringing back older jobs appeals to people. Well, part of it is because these people are being told, you know what you did is no longer relevant or important, and that's not fair. That's not a good way of approaching it. And if you just dismiss them and kind of say, well, you should change everything you're doing, that's not right. Because here's the thing, here's fundamentally the thing. When people operate their job, they learn sequences of how to do things. They get up, they do this, they do it, and they follow this, and they get to work, they follow these steps. And a better way of dealing with this is to take these steps and seeing if we can adjust them to another job industry. So rather than saying, okay, you know what, you're a coal miner, bad luck, start over, how do we take the procedures that they are used to following and adapt them so they can apply those same procedures in new ways, in new places, and maybe bring some of the new industries that are coming in into these areas where these people are, so they can then very comfortably shift from where they were to where they are. And I think that's kind of a key point, is rather than making humans learn how the computer works, which is a very common thing, and we see that all the time in software that's poorly designed, we should design the software to adapt to the humans. Well, that's the same with jobs. We should design our job needs around what humans are naturally already doing, and that way people are much more highly skilled and able to follow into these new jobs. So that's what I think would be a better approach to the problem of automation taking away jobs, as it were. Because I don't think fundamentally what we're trying to achieve is changing. I don't think humans are ever going to stop being human. Instead, we're going to still have the same types of desires and wants and needs, just transposed based on what we're capable of. Today, a lot of people pick up their cell phone and use that for their entertainment. but ultimately they're still seeking a similar kind of entertainment that they would have done 50, 100, or 1,000 years ago. It's still a similar human experience of wanting to engage with culture and news and gossip and all the different pieces.
So when you say that we need to figure out how to take the human patterns that people have developed with their previous jobs, which are not relevant anymore, and then bring them into jobs that are relevant, who is the we? Would it be private companies who invest in humans who aren't people who are not necessarily yet ready for it? Would it be government programs? Who is the we to create those jobs in that way?
Right. I use we to mean any number of people, including essentially all of us. We as humans, we as human beings. But I think, and this is an area that's somewhat outside of my area expertise, but I think this is one of the mistakes that a lot of politicians make, is that they kind of say, well, that is done, that industry no longer exists and it's going away, so you guys and girls just need to retrain to do this. And that sounds easy on paper, and it's easy to say, and it appeals to the people who are already trained to do this. But for the
who aren't living the reality of being jobless
But the people who are not getting these new jobs, who aren't retrained, that does not appeal to them. It doesn't speak to them at all, because it's essentially saying, well, you're in the wrong place. You're not important, and we're not really interested in you. You should have been over here, and you should go and do this. It's one thing to be able to say to someone, you know what, just lift yourself up out of what you're doing, and it's another thing to be in that situation and try to figure out how to find that path. You're living in a mining town in the middle of nowhere. How easy is it for you to really transition into a global computer automated role? It's not that easy.
I mean, especially if you need to then move to a city that the cultural norms are different than what you're used to. The type of dialect they speak is different. It's a completely different place.
It is, and it's your home as well. This is where you've lived. This is where you've made a home. You know, you're asking to displace people. You're asking a lot of things of people that it's not my area, but these are things that I think sometimes is missed in a lot of the politics, is that we don't consider the human element enough.
Do you know the song Allentown by Billy Joel?
I do not.
Well, we're living here in Allentown, bum, 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 and they're tearing all the factories down. It's an old song.
Yeah.
Relevant theme.
It sounds like it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I don't know. I can't sing it with you.